Hi, good morning. It's very cold. This is Esther 3. Give me a second here. I think I'm okay, Brooke. I think I'm good. So these slides, if we can get them to work, y'all. These are. This is going to shock you when I say this, but these are not professionally done. It's just me. So I'm just kind of playing with them because it's super fun for me, and I'm trying to see how it works. And so these are, don't expect much, is what I'm saying. Okay, so wait, who said they were going to buy me a table?
I'll tell you later.
Okay. Because I'd actually rather have something else if I have a choice. I'd rather have a light. I want a light. I can't see my notes. They're in the shadow. So, okay. Sorry, we'll have this conversation later. All right, let's review a little bit. In chapter 1, chapters 1 and 2 are considered part of the what? Part of the story. If you're thinking about this as a story, they're considered. Well, no. Yeah, now I see spots. Yeah, I'm going to bring my lamp and just put a floor lamp right here. So chapters 1 and 2 are considered part of, which part of the story, Chloe? The introduction, yes, thank you. And here in chapter 3, we're going to be introduced to the last major character that we haven't met yet. But in chapter 1, we meet King Ahasuerus, Queen Vashti, and the advisors, right? Remember those hilarious, stately and wise advisors. So King Ahasuerus is powerful, he's egotistical, he has a nasty temper, and history tells us that at this point in the story of Esther, he's losing wars. He's on the downhill slide there with the battles. And have y'all heard this story in 480 BC? I think it was it Marcy? Marcy and I were talking about this. There was a bad storm, and it tore up and destroyed some pontoon bridges. So think, pontoon boats, like they're floating. He's built all this across this huge, vast amount of water, and they're all destroyed. And he got so mad that he ordered the sea, the ocean, to be punished with 30 lashes. So he sent men out into the ocean with whips, not 30, that was Jesus, 300 lashes, 300 lashes. They branded the ocean, they shackled the ocean, and then the engineers who were responsible for building the pontoon bridge that was working beautifully until the storm destroyed it were all executed. So this is the man that we're dealing with, right? And we contrasted King Ahasuerus with King Jesus in the homework part for chapter 1. Then we move into chapter 2, and who have we got, Chloe? Mordecai and Esther, good. So we're told that Mordecai is a Jewish exile. You better pay attention, Chloe. Jewish exile. We know that he's working in the government, and he is a man of character in the sense that he adopts and takes care of his young cousin. He cares for her and about her. He exposes a plot that is found to be legitimate. They're planning to kill the king. So he speaks up there and saves the king's life. And then we meet Esther. Esther. She also is one of our Jewish exiles in Jewish exile, who is beautiful, and God is granting her favor with everyone, everywhere she goes. So in chapter 3, we're going to meet who, Chloe? Haman. Horrible Haman. I don't know why I'm picking on Chloe. Haman. So turn with me, if you will, to Esther 3. Esther chapter 3, verse 1. You're blank there on right there at the top of your page. The first things we're told in these old stories, these ancient stories, are meant to get our attention. They're meant to get our attention. There's a reason why it's the first thing that we're told. So if you go back to chapter 2, where we met Mordecai, what were we told about Mordecai first? Great care was given to the details of his lineage. Who was his father, his grandfathers, great-grandfathers, all the way back to his famous grandfather, several times back, King Saul. What's the first thing we're told about Esther? That she's beautiful. And then the first thing we're told about King Xerxes is that he's in charge of half the world. So the stage is being set here. Let's see what is the first thing that we're told about Haman. So up here, let's read verse 1. After these things, King Ahasuerus magnified Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all princes who were with him. So he's now basically second in command. So what's the first thing that we're told about him? Haman the Agagite. Yep. And then Mordecai the Jew. They were not friends. They did not like each other. Okay. So this kind of reminds me, who's famous in American legend? Some famous families that hated each other. The Hatfields and the McCoys. There you go. So, silly comparison, right? Because here we're just talking about two families, but if you haven't heard of them, back in the 1800s, these two families got in a feud with each other that became so well known and widespread that it really has become just part of our story, right? The fabric of America's story. They lived on the West Virginia-Kentucky line on either side of a river called the Tug River. I looked it up. It's just right there on the border. The cause of this war that they had between the two of them includes things like the Civil War, who's fighting on what side, territory disputes. No, that actually is my little chunk of land. No, it's my chunk of land, and a pig. And there's one brother killing another sister, and the aunts, and I don't know, it just goes on, right? And it's kind of a crazy story. So this is the Hatfields. So you can see they're ready. Yeah, they are loaded. Every one of them. And that's the gentleman who's seated with the rifle across his lap. He's the main guy. And then this is Mr. McCoy. So these are actual photos, right? So cameras were invented. Think Civil War. So these are some of the earliest photos that America has of these two families. Okay, so just to kind of get us thinking, feud, wars, battles between two different groups of people. So let's go back to Mordecai and Haman. So what we have are representatives from two countries, really, two groups of people who are going to get in a very big old fight. So let's look at my very brief history of Israel and Amalek, because where in the world did any of this come from? Okay, so if you'll go back, if you want to turn there, to Exodus 17, Exodus 17. We're going to skip around a little bit this time. Exodus 17, verses 8 through 16. So this is the story of Moses. Do you remember when Moses, like he's watching a battle and he gets tired and they have to help him hold his arms up? This is this story. Then Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose men for us and go out, fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will take my stand," that word's going to come up in a minute, "on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." And Joshua did as Moses told him to fight against Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. So it happened when Moses raised his hand up that Israel prevailed. But when he let his hand down, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy. He was tired. Then they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side, one on the other. Thus his hands were steady until the sun set. So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Write this in a book as a memorial and recite it in Joshua's hearing, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." And Moses built an altar and named it "Yahweh is my banner." And he said, "Because he has sworn with a hand upon the throne of Yah, with his hand on the throne of God, Yahweh will have war against Amalek from generation to generation." So that's where all this started. Harvey's waving at me. Okay, so then go to Deuteronomy 25. Deuteronomy, it's a couple books over, 25. 17 through 19. So this is a little later, and Moses just wants to give them a friendly reminder. Don't forget. Deuteronomy 25:17. "Remember what the Amalekites did to you along your way from Egypt, how they met you on your journey when you were tired and weary, and they attacked all your stragglers. They had no fear of God. When the Lord your God gives you rest from the enemies around you and the land that he is giving you to possess as an inheritance, you are to blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget." Okay, so who forgets? King Saul. Okay, so fast forward to King Saul. In 1 Samuel 15. This is my favorite chapter in the whole Bible. I got saved reading this chapter. So it's taken everything in me not to say, "Oh, let's just stop and read the chapter." But we're not, because we don't have time. So we've skipped up from Moses through that timeline to King Saul. And Saul is told very clearly, I'll just summarize the chapter, very clearly to destroy the entire people. The children, the women, the animals, the king, everything and everyone. It's very, very clear, his directions. And what does Saul do? Do you remember? He saves all but the best. He saves like a few of the animals and a few of the people, and he spares King Agag. So because of it, God judges Saul and he loses the kingdom. He doesn't get to, well, he remains the king for a little bit longer, but Jonathan doesn't get to be the king. It's given over to King David. And who comes and kills King Agag? Chloe? Samuel, right. So Samuel comes, the priest comes and takes care of what King Saul wouldn't do. Okay, so then we scoot up to Esther 3. So we go forward a little bit in time to Esther 3. So who is a descendant of King Saul? Mordecai. Isn't that what I said? Did I say King Saul? Yes. And then who is a descendant of King Agag? Haman. So Karen Jobes in her commentary says that over the centuries after Saul spared Agag's life, other perennial enemies of Israel were called Agagites, even though they had no ethnic relationship to the Amalekites. So they're named after King Agag. It's kind of a nickname. It's not very flattering. In the first century of this era, for example, Jewish writers referred to the Romans as Agagites. And in our own time today, the Palestinians in Israel are sometimes referred to by that ancient nickname. Okay? So it has endured, this hatred has endured even through thousands of years, even to today. If anyone ever calls you that, they don't mean it as a compliment. Okay? So Haman, your blank there, is hates the Jews. He hated the Jews. And by introducing him this way in our story in Esther 3, it would have clearly said to the original hearers or readers of the story that he was anti-Semitic, that he hated the Jews. Okay? So let's move on here and see what Mordecai does. Mordecai takes a stand. Let's look at Esther 3, 2 through 4. And all the king's servants who were at the king's gate were bowing down and prostrating themselves before Haman. For so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow down or prostrate himself. So the king's servants who were at the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you trespass against the king's command? Come on, buddy, what are you doing?" Now it happened when they had spoken daily to him, he kept doing it, they kept asking him, and he would not listen to them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. There's that word again. We're going to look at it in just a sec. For he had told them that he was what? A Jew. So seems like the reason why he won't bow down was because the reason that he gave was because he was a Jew. So let's look at the word stand. What does that word mean? It's a verb down there at the bottom of page 1. It means to appoint. It kind of means, what you think it would mean. Abide behind, arise, cease, continue, dwell. Confirm, be employed. I'm going to stand in this job. I'm going to stand behind is how it would be translated. I was appointed, or I'm just going to arise. I'm just going to get up. I'm just going to stand up. So it can be used literally, like I am literally standing here, or it could be used figuratively. But why won't Mordecai bow? It was culturally acceptable at the time. It was not prohibited anywhere. Think like you might curtsy to the queen if you're in England. It was a sign of respect, not worship. But he wouldn't bow because he was a Jew. And that seemed to be all of the explanation anyone needed. Okay? So, All right, let me see if this will work. There we go. So our little chart here, I got kind of on a little sidetrack about the word stand. So this is a very brief study of the word stand. In Esther 7:7, we see the word, and it means remain in one location. So it's what's your blank there in your chart is what's up there in red. To remain in one location. And the king arose in his wrath from drinking wine and went into the garden of his palace. But Haman stayed to seek for his life from Queen Esther. This is at the end of the story. For he saw that calamity had been determined against him by the king. So the king stands up. He is going to this one place, and he's very angry. And then in Esther 8:3-4, we see the word stand as opposed to sitting. Esther 8:3-4. Then Esther spoke again to the king, fell at his feet, wept, and implored him to repeal the evil scheme of Haman the Agagite and his scheme which he had devised against the Jews. And the king extended the golden scepter to Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king. She'd been down on her hands and knees begging for her life, and she arose. It just carries some, I don't know, feels majestic. Maybe that's not the right word, but what's a good word there? It just feels important. She got up. She arose from the lowly position of sitting. So Esther 4, there we go, 14. So here it means arise, appear. It means deliverance. Deliverance is coming. Esther 4:14 says, for if you remain silent, this is the famous verse, right? At this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not reached royalty for such a time as this. So here it's just carrying with it this sense of it's coming, it will appear, deliverance will be there. It just seems more important than just we're just standing there, right? So Esther 8:11, this is making a stand, where you take a stand, you hold one's ground for your life. Make a stand, hold one's ground for one's life. Esther 8:11 says, in them the king gave the Jews who were in each and every city the right to assemble and to make a stand for their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish the entire military force of any people or province which would act as their adversaries, including little ones and women, and to plunder their spoil. So this is when King Ahasuerus, later in the story, tells them it's okay to fight for your life. Take a stand. Stand your ground. And then Esther 9:16, it's the same word there. Now the rest of the Jews who were in the king's provinces assembled to make a stand for their lives and obtain rest for themselves from their enemies. So this is what Mordecai is doing. He's taking a stand when he won't bow to Haman. So up until now, it's been very quiet that they're Jewish. He's had Esther keep that a secret, and you can kind of, based on Haman's reaction, maybe that gives us some insight into how they were going to treat the Jews, or at least there. And so he says, no more. and he takes a stand here. So what does this do to Haman? Haman is not very happy, to say the least. So verses 5 through 7. Then Haman saw that Mordecai was not bowing down or prostrating himself before him. So Haman was filled with wrath, but he despised in his eyes to send forth his hand against Mordecai alone, for they had told him who the people of Mordecai were. Therefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, the people of Mordecai, who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. All right, let's look at that word wrath real quickly. It means anger, bottles, like a bottle. Does that make sense? Think about that for a second. Hot displeasure, furious heat, indignation, poison, like the poison of a snake, rage, and wrathful. So how do bottles fit into this? We say it all the time. Yeah, like he's just bottled up and it explodes. Yeah. So it's that picture of someone who's so angry that it's just all bottled up inside them and it's going to let loose. So the NIV application commentary says, well, let me read verse 7 first. In the first month, which is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, Pur, that is the lot, was cast before Haman from day to day and from month to month until the 12th month, that is the month Adar. So what he's doing here is he's going to wipe out all these people, but he wants to pick a day. So they can get ready. They're casting lots. They're doing all this to pick the right day that would be the most in their favor. So they do a few, and then they end up settling on the 12th month, the month of Adar. So the NIV application commentary tells us that to determine the best time for an attack on the Jews, Haman consults the Pur or Lot. Now, archaeologists have unearthed samples of Purim, which were clay cubes inscribed with either cuneiform characters or dots that look a lot like our modern dice. Casting the lot literally meant just throwing the dice. But unlike modern use, we use it to play games, right? Or gamble. The ancient lot was used not for gambling, but for divination. It was a way of asking the gods for answers to questions about the future. So they wanted to know the best time. So here's a picture of one. So they're just little clay. This one has the dots, and then this one would have the cuneiform writing on it. You know, they're just little, weren't very big. So we'll see later on in the story when we get to the Feast of Purim, and when that is started, it got its name based on this event. It's a little bit of a, you thought, yeah, we're going to have a feast to show you who's in control here. Okay. All right. So Haman, he's angry, and then we see him twisting the truth. Verse 8. He's twisting the truth. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, "There is a certain people scattered and separated among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom." That was true, right? Their laws are different from those of all other people, and they do not do the king's laws, so that it is not worth it for the king to let them remain. He's not exactly telling the truth, right? There's a little bit of truth mixed in there with, are they not keeping the laws? Like, as a group, do we know they're not? No, and then to come to the conclusion that it is not worth letting them live. So he promises the king money. He promises the king money in verses 9 through 11. So now keep in mind, King Ahasuerus has been losing battles. And that costs money, right? Because if you lose the battle, you don't get to plunder in victory. So it cost a lot of money, they lost a lot of money, and they didn't get, because they didn't win, they didn't get to take all the money from the losers. They were they were the losers. So, verse 9, if it seems good to the king, let it be written down that they should perish. Just kill them. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do this work to bring into the king's treasuries. Then the king removed his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman. Haman who? The son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the adversary of the Jews. Just says straight up right there, he hated the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the silver is yours and the people also, to do with them according to whatever you want. Whatever's good. So here is the little picture of the little silver coins. This was, I'm pretty sure if I remember rightly, this is supposed to be King Darius, not Ahasuerus, okay? So, Karen Job says, Haman then appeals to the king's need to replenish the treasury that had been depleted by his disastrous war with Greece. Herodotus, who's our famous old historian we're getting all this from, reports that the annual revenue of the Persian Empire under Xerxes' father Darius was 650,000 talents. Haman's offered to provide 10,000 talents of silver, which would have been about 300 tons, represents a substantial contribution to the royal coffers. And then presumably this money would have come from plundering the possessions of the Jews, okay? So he's kind of making the deal a little sweeter. I'll pay for it. Like, I'll bring the money in and I'll pay for it. And King Ahasuerus here says, no, don't worry about it. But a little later, he makes it clear that he was going to take it. So Haman's angry. He's twisting the truth. He's promising money. And then he picks a momentous date to unveil this new law. In Esther 3:12 through 14. It's easy to miss this. Then the king's scribes were summoned on the 13th day of the first month. 13th day of the first month. And it was written just as Haman commanded to the king's satraps, to the governors who were over each province, and to the princes of each people, each province according to its script, each people according to its tongue, being written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with his signet ring. So all those details, it's going out in every language to every group across every bit of the kingdom. And letters were sent by the hand of couriers. They had, basically it was a pony express is what it reminded me of. They were sent by the hand of couriers to all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause all the Jews to perish, both young and old, little ones and women, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to plunder their spoil, take it all, kill them all, take it all. A copy of that which was written down to be given as law in every province was revealed to all the peoples, so that the Persians would be ready for that day. So Haman casts lots during the first month of the year to determine the day of attack. That day is set for the 12th month, okay? Gives them plenty of time to get ready. That's a lot of people to kill. The Jews that were left, there was a tremendous amount of people left. And of course, we'll get to that more later in the story. But what's notable about the day that the plan is announced, the 13th day of the first month. Does anyone know? Chloe, you want me to pick on you?
Is it Passover?
It's the day before Passover. Yes. Good job, Chloe.
I just read Exodus.
Yeah, good. It's the day before Passover for them. So while it would take a while to get the new law out to everyone across the vast land, right, for Susa, where it was announced that day, they got the full impact of it. It would have had a profound effect, at least on the Jews. Everything in me wants to say the irony, but the providence of that day being chosen. Now there are a few verses in the Bible that just get me. I don't know any other way to describe it. They just have this effect. And one of them is in Job, when Job says, he's talking to his friends and he's going through his whole list of things. And one of the things that he says is, I miss my children. It just, every time I read it. And then there's another verse in the New Testament that says that the bride of Christ, the church, right, the bride of Christ, will wear linen, and that linen will be made from the good works of the saints. What does that even mean? Like, that just floors me every time. The bride of Christ will be dressed in the good works of his children. That has nothing to do with Esther, but those are the verses. Those are two examples that just get me. And here's another one. So another thing that Haman does is he hangs out with his drinking buddy. The couriers went out, hastened by the word of the king with all of the authority they've been given to announce this law. And the law was given at the citadel in Susa. No doubt it would have rippled out from there, right? Now listen to this. Now the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was in confusion. The juxtaposition, the contrast of the confusion and the chaos of the people of Susa contrasted against the calm, almost casualness of, let's go have a drink. I wonder if they smoked a cigar. Each of those, the king's city is in chaos and he's drinking. It just, each to me makes the other even worse. So, chapter 3. That was just a brief look at chapter 3. So, in conclusion, have you ever read or seen or heard of one of those books? Children's books do these sometimes, where you get to pick the ending. Ever read one of those? If you haven't, they actually work better than you think they would. So today's lesson is one where you pick the conclusion. I couldn't decide and just went back and forth all week long. Tony even told me, just pick one. I was like, no, I can't do it. So I'm going to let you pick your conclusion this week. What would you like to conclude with? You have 3 choices. The providence of God. Chloe today said that the events in Esther are so cool. It's cool. She didn't use that word, but it's cool that the events in Esther started long before the story. And we saw that today. They started all the way back when Moses fought Amalek, right? So way back yonder. And we see the providence of God in the individuals in this story. And we see it building. We're going to see it even more clearly in the whole nation of Israel and God's people, right? We know that he's working to save his people. Big picture, Esther, Mordecai, Haman, Ahasuerus, all the little details, right? Okay, so that's the first one, providence. And then I would ask you, where are you seeing the providence of God in your own life to apply it to you? Okay, that was 1. 2, what we see here maybe is the birth of anti-Semitism, or maybe that happened in the garden. Yes, definitely. But yeah, so not the birth of anti-Semitism. That would have happened with Satan, right? In the garden. So to hate God's people. So we can conclude with that. Where are you there? How do you feel about God's people? And then the third one, I just called hatred. And I mean this more on a personal level, okay? Go back to the Hatfields and the McCoys. That silly little story. We call it a silly story, but they ended up killing each other. Today they get along and they're friends and they have a whole thing, yeah.
Can I just share? I'm from Kentucky. My mother is a direct descendant from the McCoys. Her maiden name was Coy. It came from there. My father was a descendant from Hatfield.
From the Hatfields.
So here you have the providence of God bringing these 2 families, and maybe that's why I'm so weird. But anyhow.
Yes.
I don't look like those people in pictures, but some of my ancestors.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, yeah, but I mean, seriously, there was a big thing growing up. That
Yeah.
My mom from the McCoys, and my dad from Hatfield.
From the Hatfields.
Got married, and nobody thought it would last. And
Wow. Okay, we've got living history right here on the back row. So, back to your third option for your conclusion. There was some hatred going on there, at least with Haman towards Mordecai. Mordecai took a stand, and Haman would have nothing to do with it. But so this conclusion is kind of way off the story a little bit. But is there someone that you hate? Is there someone, when we would say, no, we don't hate anyone, but are you mad? Are you bitter? Are you, just something that struck me this week. Okay, so 3-point conclusion, you pick the ending that convicts you the most. How about that? Don't pick the one you like. Pick the one that convicts you the most. So, let me pray. Dear Father, we are humbled and amazed at your goodness to Esther and Mordecai and to your people and to us in the tiny little details of our lives and in the big picture of our lives. We're thankful that you care for us, that you love us, and that you are moving us along to your glorious ending. We're very thankful. I pray that this week we will see your providence, that we will think often of you and your work in the details of our lives. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.